Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So for years and years, Xbox fans have dreamt of an Xbox handheld console. PlayStation has had handhelds such as the PSP and PlayStation Vita. You have Nintendo with a wide array of mobile consoles. But so far, Xbox is the one out of the big three that has yet to produce their own handheld console. But well, it's actually starting to sound like they might be reconsidering that. Not only was an Xbox-like handheld console announced today, but the underlying message that I got today is that Xbox themselves might have some big plans in this regards. So we will go over that one today. And then also, a new PlayStation Plus game is creating a little bit of a controversy, so we will go over that one as well. The first thing that we're going to talk about today, though, would be a controller over on Kickstarter being made by Panda Global. Panda Global is an esports organization, so they do know how competitive play works, which is going to be really important for this particular controller here. They are advertising the Panda controller as a premium GameCube controller fit for competitive play. There does seem to be a lot of work that's went into this controller. It's got a lot of customization. It's got these magnetic shells that you can pop off and then swap them with something else. You can swap out the buttons. It's got a tactile D-pad. The analog stick looks really nice. You can customize the height of the triggers. It's got back buttons. You can change the weight of this thing. And yeah, they put a lot of effort into this particular controller here. And you know, that's kind of the thing, because there's a lot of diehard fans out there for the GameCube controller. I mean, we're talking about a console that released 20 years ago, and there's still a lot of fans today that still uses that GameCube controller to play games such as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's just a really well-made controller, and because they're advertising this as a modern GameCube-like controller, well, it just completely obliterated its funding goals over on Kickstarter. Yeah, so their original goal was $100,000 in 30 days. Well, they actually broke that within the first hour, and it's already eclipsed $777,000 of funding as of this recording. Realistically, it's probably going to be well beyond $800,000 by the time I post this video. But yes, this just kind of shows you how much people love that GameCube controller. And again, this actually does look like a really nice controller. They are selling this for $90, though. If you want some of the accessories that comes along with it, such as the Pro Shell, that's another $20. If you want the wireless pack, I believe that is also sold separately. So the price of this thing can be quite expensive, but if it really is as good as it looks, it might be well worth it for a lot of fans out there, as, well, we've already kind of seen. Truthfully, I really like the GameCube controller as well, so I'm kind of tempted to get this one myself. Next up, it does look like an Xbox console exclusive might be heading over to PlayStation sometime here soon, and that would be the Ascent. The Ascent has now officially been rated over in Taiwan for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, and while this doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, a lot of the times when you see a game rating, more often than not, it does seem like that game does eventually head over to said platform. This is something that we really have seen pop up quite a bit in the last couple years, so it does look like the Ascent will more than likely be heading over to PlayStation sometime here soon. Now, the Ascent is a game that released directly into Xbox Game Pass earlier this year, and it was initially met with some criticism, as it did launch with quite a few bugs and glitches. With that said, though, I did play this one myself with a friend because it is a great cooperative game, but this game is absolutely stunning to look at. Really, it's probably one of the better games that I have seen visually for these next generation consoles so far. I know that's kind of hard to believe for an isometric style of game like this, but I'm telling you, when you play this on the Xbox Series X, it looks absolutely stunning. And it's also actually a pretty fun game as well. Yes, it did have some bugs and glitches, but my hope with this PlayStation launch is that maybe, just maybe, they will have all those problems fixed up and then it'll have a smoother launch, because there really is a good game hidden beneath that criticism. So if you are looking for a fun cooperative game, you might want to keep an eye out for the Ascent over on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. I, of course, will keep you updated if we hear anything else about this situation, such as the release date, so make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep updated. Let's go ahead and talk about Xbox here for a moment, though, because a new interesting console was just announced that might actually take advantage of Xbox game streaming. But there's actually a little bit more to this one, because it does sound like Xbox might have some plans of their own. We'll get into that here in just a moment. But first, let's go and take a look at this new console made by Razer and Qualcomm. So this is the Snapdragon G3X, which is actually a developer kit that was made by Razer. Keep in mind that this is not an official product that's going to be hitting the market anytime anytime soon. For the time being, this is just a developer kit, so this is not like a final product that's ready to go to the market or anything like that. But with them partnering up with Razer, this could inspire some devices like this, and I think that we very much are heading into that direction, especially with things like game streaming continuously improving. This is something that they very specifically mentioned. They do repeatedly talk about this console running Xbox Game Pass and Xbox game streaming. Even the design of this thing looks very similar to an Xbox controller, so you can really tell that they designed this thing with playing Xbox games in mind. Again, we'll kind of get back into that here in just a moment, but first let's go and take a look at some of the specs when it comes to this thing. So it comes with a Qualcomm Adreno GPU, which promises up to 144 frames per second. It has a built-in 1080p 60 frames per second webcam. It has 5G support, which is going to be very important when it comes to game streaming, and it also has a 6.65-inch OLED display with full HD plus resolution and 10-bit HDR running up to 120 Hertz. Yes, all of that sounds really impressive on paper, and if you were looking for a device to game stream your Xbox games, well, this might be a good direction to take. Of course, there's plenty of controllers out there, which I think is perfectly viable as well, but a dedicated game console to game stream, that is an interesting and less clunky way to stream your games. What I found most interesting about this topic, though, is actually in what Windows Central had to say. Because obviously with a platform like this, there's going to be a lot of talk about an Xbox handheld, and let's just go and check out what Windows Central had to say. We have been hearing for a while at Windows Central that Microsoft has been dabbling with Xbox handheld prototypes for some time now, although something like this Qualcomm platform may be the family of technologies Microsoft needs to really give it serious consideration. So there you have it, coming from Windows Central, which is a reputable source, especially when it comes to Xbox information. They do say that Xbox has been dabbling with Xbox handheld prototypes. So the dreams of having an Xbox handheld might actually be coming to a reality after all. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that any of these prototypes will actually make it out to the market, but they are considering an Xbox handheld console, which is already big on its own. I mean, I do imagine that it'll probably once again be focusing on game streaming, but if Microsoft were to design it themselves, they could possibly iron out as much of the kinks as they possibly could when it comes to game streaming and make this into a good Xbox handheld console. I actually believe that there would be quite a market for that. I think that there'd be a lot of Xbox fans that would jump on board for having a console like this, even again, if it's just game streaming. Now, maybe they could also expand Xbox Game Pass Ultimate to include some local mobile games. I mean, some of these games could probably run on local hardware, so maybe they could possibly do something like that. They could have an Xbox UI, and I mean, if it's designed well enough, if it's priced right, and if it does run well, yeah, I think that this could be a really cool device to have. But let me know in the comments below on what you think about all of this. If Xbox did make a handheld console that focused on game streaming, would you be interested? Let me know in the comments below. Now, we do also have some controversy to talk about regarding the December PlayStation Plus monthly games. We did actually talk about these games about a week or so ago, as they did leak out online, which includes Mortal Shell for the PlayStation 4, Lego DC Supervillains, and then also Godfall Challenger Edition. And that right there is the game that is causing a little bit of a controversy. Now, when we talked about this last week, I did point out that Godfall Challenger Edition did appear to be a new game. But they did something that I wasn't expecting, because what I originally thought was that this was going to be kind of like a Game of the Year edition type of thing, where they fix a lot of the problems that it originally had, maybe change some gameplay elements to it, and maybe even include an expansion. Well, I was actually completely wrong about that, because the Challenger Edition is actually a stripped-down version of Godfall. Yeah, that was definitely unexpected, and let's just go and check out what they had to say over on the PlayStation blog. The Challenger Edition focuses on 3 unique modes: Lightbringer, Dreamstones, and the Ascended Tower of Trials. All 3 are in-game level content, but you'll be immediately equipped with a spread of deadly weapons and skill points, letting you team up with up to 2 other players in co-op. Perfect your build and smash your enemies. Challenger Edition's in-game co-op is compatible with all upgraded editions of Godfall and supports cross-gen play. Godfall Challenger Edition players can upgrade at any time to the Deluxe Edition, gaining access to both Godfall and Fire and Darkness campaigns. Yeah, you heard that right. You actually have to upgrade to the Deluxe Edition to gain access to the story campaigns. The Challenger Edition does not come with a story, but rather it basically advances you all the way to the end game to play. That is such an odd decision. I mean, it's basically saying that the single-player campaign is just not worth your time, so you can completely skip it and just jump right into the end game where you're going to have all that fun. But if you want, you can still play the campaign by upgrading to the Deluxe Edition. It's almost like they're trying to entice you to buy that version of the game, but they're not really selling it all that well in their advertising here. I mean, on top of that, Godfall was never really all that well received in the first place. I mean, I know Sony tried to showcase this game in pretty much all of their events throughout 2020, but it was widely criticized up on launch. It did receive a 61 overall score on Metacritic, and even though I think Sony was kind of hoping this would be the next Destiny game, it just didn't turn out that way. So here we have them once again really trying to push for Godfall with it coming over to PlayStation Plus, but it doesn't even really include the entire game. I mean, I know that Final Fantasy XIV does something a little bit similar. In Final Fantasy XIV, you can actually pay to skip the base game to jump right into the expansions, but here with Final Fantasy XIV, you're paying to skip to the expansions, but with Godfall, it's completely the reverse. You're upgrading to get the beginning of the game. It just seems like an odd decision to make to kind of entice players, though. I just don't think that they advertised this one very well at all. Now, speaking of controversy, let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, because I know this has been a big talking point since it was announced that Halo Infinite's cooperative mode will not launch side by side with its single-player campaign. Halo Infinite's single-player campaign will launch on December 8th, but Halo Infinite's cooperative mode won't launch until next year, and this has left some fans disappointed, rightfully so. I do completely understand that, but I wanted to see just how many people actually will hold off on playing Halo Infinite's campaign. So when I asked you all, 18% of you said that you will hold off on playing Halo Infinite's campaign, while 76% of you said no, you're still going to play. And okay, there you go. A lot of people are going to jump into Halo Infinite's campaign with or without cooperative mode. And one common theme that I did see within the comments is actually something that I've talked about in the past, and that is that a lot of you all usually do play its single-player campaign first by yourself before jumping into cooperative. And the reason that a lot of people does this, myself included, is because you can appreciate the story a little bit more. Halo generally has had a pretty interesting story in the past, and when you play games in cooperative, people are constantly talking and you just can't really focus on the dialogue near as much. So for a lot of people, they do want to play this game first by themselves, and then later on they play it cooperatively. So that's why for myself, I was okay with the cooperative mode not launching side by side, though at the same time I do understand that some of you all just absolutely will play with a friend no matter what when a game first comes out. I get that too, but that does appear to be the heavy minority here. That's one of the things that makes Halo so special, though, because Halo is one of the very few games in the entire industry that is the complete package. You don't see this very often, especially with today's games, but it's got a good competitive multiplayer game mode. It's got an interesting story with a fun campaign, and then it also is a good cooperative experience, where a lot of games are just good with its single player, or just good with its multiplayer, or just good with its co-op. Halo does everything really well, and that's what makes these games so special. And that's one of the reasons that you see so many different opinions when it comes to Halo Infinite. Different fans enjoy Halo for different reasons, so I don't think that anybody's necessarily wrong for wanting co-op to be there right out of the gate, but it's always important to keep in mind that the Halo community is large and everybody likes different things. So I don't think it's necessary to delay the single player campaign just because it doesn't have co-op, because a lot of people will play this game by themselves, as shown with this poll. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.